Are we live? Hello, everyone. We're very excited to be here today to tell everyone about our new NASA Earth Science in Action comic strip contest. My name is Jancy McPhee, and I am the Executive Director of the nonprofit SciArtExchange. And we are the ones who've been working with NASA Earth scientists to host this contest. And before we introduce our special guest today, I'd like to first tell you a few details about the contest and introduce the 3 stories we would like to invite you to retell through comic artwork, and by showing you a short, less than 5-minute video a little bit later. Then we will introduce our guests and answer any questions that you might have. So let me please start by just diving into telling you a little bit about this contest. As I mentioned, it's a partnership with NASA Earth Sciences Applied Sciences. And NASA Earth Applied Sciences uses Earth observations to solve our planet's most pressing issues. And you can see the contest webpage on our SciArtExchange.org website. So what's the main idea of the contest? We want to help inspire, with your help, about how NASA data can really benefit local communities worldwide. They can help build capacities for these communities and help them to make decisions about their environment, whether it's about food, water, health, or safety. And in addition, the winning artwork will get great visibility through the NASA Earth and SciArtExchange digital networks. And also the top winning artists will get a personalized trophy and certificate. So that's just kind of the basic outline of the contest. But here's what you would have to do. So what's required for this contest is to describe the 3 stories that we're about to tell you about, and that will introduce via video in just a minute. And we have a scientist from each of those stories to help answer your questions. The contest is global. We have 2 age groups: high school, which is roughly 14 to 18 years old, and adults, 18 years and older. And this is a global contest, so anyone from any country can participate. There will be 1 top award per story per age group. So there will be 6 top winners who will get the prizes that we described earlier. And the submissions are all online. So even if you hand draw your comic, you'll need to photograph it or scan it in order to upload it to the online submission system. And you can also, of course, create your artwork initially as a digital artwork. The artwork will need to be portrait in style, preferably high resolution, because we might be printing these really big to show them off. And you can learn more details about the exact requirements of the artwork by going to our website. An important thing to remember is if you are less than 18 years old, you must have on file a parent or guardian who signed agreement forms. So be sure you line up whomever you want to sign your electronic agreement form when you're ready to submit. You'll need their email address. Due date for the contest is August 13th. And many scientists and artists and astronauts will judge the artwork in the initial and final rounds. And you've really got to go to our website to check out our amazing group of finals judges and see who's going to select the winners for the contest. Now, in order to prepare for being a participant in the contest, we suggest that you use all the resources that are available for you on this website. So watch the webinar if you're watching this not live, but pre-recorded, and look at all the stories and use the information we have to inspire your artwork and decide which story you want to do. Then you really need to read the guidelines carefully so you don't get disqualified. And then you make your art and enter it through the online submission system. And that's all. So now it's actually your turn to tell the story, but let's talk a little bit about what those stories are, and then we will introduce our online guests for today's webinar.
No single country could solve this problem alone, but require stronger collaboration.
The Mekong Air Quality Explorer tool, what it is doing is providing a vital information to the government, to the public, to the decision makers about the past, current, and the future level of pollution. So that information can be used to mitigate its effect on human health and then develop policies and control strategies in longer term. And then local agencies adopted this tool and enabled the broadcasting of information through this tool, through the communities, through the web portal. The phone apps are using some of this data in there to actually inform their users, and through other means of mass communication. The fundamental purpose of this tool is to provide an advance alerts to the public about how much air pollution they are going to experience in the next 2 days, such as if there is going to rain tomorrow, then we probably not going to schedule any outdoor activities, right? Similarly, if there is a very high level of pollution is expected because of the fires burning and the smoke is transporting into certain communities or region, then schools can actually plan that, okay, we don't have to plan outdoor activities because the children are among the population which are highly vulnerable to the air pollution. And if we have this information in advance, it can definitely save lives.
A couple of years ago, our fishers started realizing that they are traveling farther, they're spending much more time fishing, and they weren't catching as much fish that they were years before. So
the Nature Conservancy, we brought together various data sources, including NASA satellite data, to represent the environment, the natural resources, the industries in and around Palau. And we also engaged with the stakeholders, and we had them draw on physical maps with a pen where important fishing areas, where important areas that we could develop aquaculture might be. And we combined all this data, organized it, and we developed rules for each of these data sets. And we ran what's called a suitability analysis. And the suitability analysis helps determine the best areas for aquaculture for finfish and giant clams in Palau.
It's helping us develop aquaculture into like a bigger scale, because before it would be just these small pilot projects, but now you have this assessment of the suitable areas, and then so we know that we can have this X number of clam farms or fish cages at this particular site, and there would be kind of an assurance that the surrounding environment wouldn't be impacted as much.
My work in this context really involves trying to understand smoke from wildfires. How much smoke do the wildfires produce? Where does it go? How does that impact air pollution? And then how does that pollution impact human health? We used fire detection information from a sensor called the Advanced Baseline Imager. This imager works kind of like infrared goggles to detect heat from space. It gives data to us on the location and the intensity of fires. And the exciting thing is it gets it every 5 minutes. Prior to the project, we had largely been relying on data that was available sort of on a daily basis. The new tool makes our response much more nimble and is able to get us the information much more quickly and just be a lot more responsive. I mean, our ultimate goal is to provide better smoke information that eventually gets to the community so that they can make more informed decisions to protect their health. Particularly as the climate has warmed, in some parts of the West, the smoke has become a regular occurrence and people need more information about what to do. And in order to make the informed decisions, when is it okay to go jogging? When is it okay to have soccer practice? How do I protect my pets? And all these sorts of things.
Well, we hope you enjoyed having just a little bit of a preview of what the 3 stories are that we're hoping you're going to tell through your comic strip art. And we are very lucky today to have live here at the webinar 3 of our scientists, one each from the stories that you just saw, and one of our comic strip artist judges. So we have Sean Rafuse from the US Smoke Story, Jonathan McKay from the Palau Fish Story, Pawan Gupta from the Thai Pollution Story, and Haesu Lee is our comic artist judge for the finals round. So I'm actually going to start by, I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves, but I'm going to start with Haesu because she was not featured in the videos and she has some really important things to tell you to perhaps give you some tips on how you might take a science message and use art to talk about that story. So if I could just turn it over to you, Haesu, that would be great.
All right, sounds good. Hi guys, it's so nice to meet you guys. I feel very honored to be a part of this amazing contest. First of all, what I like to tell you guys is have fun. I know I know there are a lot of brief that you have to go through and a lot of information you have to digest, but just like having, like having fun when you doodle, you feel really relaxed and you just kind of follow your, like a rhythm with your drawings. So don't forget to have fun. That's really important. Secondly, I think this is a really great contest because if you want to become an illustrator, such as myself, you always have to work with the clients, right? You are going to always work with a brief. So it's not just you are gonna just draw whatever you like to draw. There'll be always a brief that you have to follow. So this contest is great because there will be a structure that you have to follow. So don't forget to read every single stories as closely as possible before you jump in and making sketches. So that is really important. When you go through brief, I would recommend for you to take out a important either a sentence or paragraph or vocabularies that really sort of like focuses on the topic of each story. So do that and start doodling all these, things that you kind of collected. Third one is be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else because me as a comic book artist, you will feel like there will be a style that you want to mimic, but that's not going to work. What's really great about making a comics is about giving you a platform to be yourself and tell your own story. So even though there are 3 amazing stories, pick the one that you feel most inspired and try to draw the way you would draw to tell a story. Anyway, sorry, I totally jumped into giving an advice, but I'm an illustrator and comic book artist as well as educator. So I've been an illustrator for maybe 12 years and also teaching illustrations. It's really wonderful. It's a really good mixture of artists, but also work with a lot of great projects. So that's what I do. And I'm very, very honored to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
That was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, Haesu. And this is what this contest is about, and what the nonprofit is about is whether your background training is actually in science and engineering or your background training is in the arts. There's a tremendous amount of power that comes when you try to bring those 2 things together. So thank you very much. That was perfect. So I'm just actually going to follow the way the images are on my particular Zoom screen. And Pawan, can you just take just about a minute, because we already saw your video, to just reintroduce who you are and what your role was in the NASA story in which you played an important part. Should we try someone else for a minute, Polan, while you work on your unmuting?
Yeah,
Oh, you
sorry.
got it.
Yeah. No, I think my system was frozen for some reason. Sorry. Yeah. So I'm suppose you are asking for for a introduction. Is that right?
Just introduce yourself, your title, and just 15 seconds. What was your role in the story in which you're involved?
Sure, thank you. So, hi everyone. My name is Pawan Gupta. I'm a senior scientist, Earth Sciences, here at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and I lead the science part of the story, which you will see using the satellite data for monitoring and forecasting air quality in Thailand. So I was lead scientist for that story. So I will be happy to answer any question you might have. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you. Jonathan, would you please quickly introduce yourself?
Thanks. So my name is Jonathan Mackay. I'm a marine spatial scientist, part of the global aquaculture team at the Nature Conservancy, and I'm based in San Francisco, California. So I was the lead scientist on this project, which was using satellite data to help run a suitability analysis for aquaculture within the beautiful islands of Palau.
Thank you, Jonathan. How about you, Sean?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Rafuse. I'm a researcher at the Air Quality Research Center at University of California, Davis. And I worked with my colleague Susan O'Neill at the Forest Service to develop the tool for assessing real-time fire and smoke in North America.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. I don't know if we have any questions yet online. If we do, no? Okay, that's all right, because we have a couple of questions for you. So let's start with Sean. Since you're unmuted, you get chosen. What can you tell us? Can you tell us a little bit more about the long-term dangers of smoke exposure as opposed to the more immediate danger of fire?
So, sure, smoke from wildfire has been shown in studies time and time again to be very, very detrimental to human health. And the concentrations of smoke that we see, particularly in the Western United States or anywhere where they get a lot of fires, is often the highest levels of pollution that these places receive, particularly in clean areas like the Western United States. If you have a wildfire, then that's the worst air you're going to breathe. And the impacts are very widespread. And as an example, you asked to contrast sort of the fire itself. We have had a couple of very devastating wildfire years in California and throughout the Western United States in the last 3 or 4 years. For example, in 2018, we had the Camp Fire. There were several fatalities in the wildfire. In the order of dozens of people were killed by the fires. But the smoke impacts are broad and long-ranging. The smoke went into the Central Valleys of California, where millions of people, tens of millions of people live, and was there for a month. And you can do some statistical estimations of how many people will die as a result of that, premature deaths and mortality or morbidity. And the numbers are in the thousands to tens of thousands of people. And so the smoke is really a serious issue. And it's maybe not as immediate, but it's felt very broadly by everything from just a little bit of irritation and runny nose to heart issues and asthma, things like that.
Thank you, because I know that's going to be a question that our potential artists are thinking of. So I really appreciate your clarifying that. Jonathan, if you wouldn't mind, we have multiple questions for each of you, but I'll just spread it around for the moment. Can you please take a turn and just talk a little bit about the global benefits of using NASA data to practice aquaculture in Palau, and then how can that be applied elsewhere on Earth? So one of the themes of this is not just to talk about individual stories, but to talk about how they are just examples of how this amazing science can really help local communities around the world. So please.
Sure. So I'll start with the local perspective on this using satellite data, and then I'll talk more about the global applications of this work. So within Palau, one of the major concerns is rising sea surface temperature. So we were able to integrate both sea surface temperature and a measure which is called degree heating weeks, which is used to measure coral bleaching, which can be a problem also with giant clams. Giant clams and corals are somewhat similar in the way that they produce their energy. So a giant clam can bleach just like a coral can bleach. So that was one of the data sets that we integrated into our suitability analysis. So we looked for areas that would be less susceptible to bleaching. So that was one of the major data sets. Now, on the global scale, this approach that we took, the suitability analysis that we ran for Palau, we're already using a lot of the methods that we employed in Palau in different regions of the world to do a similar approach, integrating data into a suitability analysis to find suitable areas for aquaculture.
Thank you. That kind of underscores a very important point of what we're trying to do here. It's not just the individual stories, but it's all the great work that science can do to help around the world. So, hey, Sue, I wanted to kind of turn to you. I know you've already touched on this just a little bit with your great intro statements, but can you tell us a little bit more about kind of like the how to use comic style artwork in particular to represent one of these science stories? And to me, that's a really interesting question, because we are not limiting the style. And you already talked about that. Everybody needs to use the style that's natural for them, but they are so different, whether they're superhero or graphic novel or single squares or, you know, web-based type comics. Can you talk a little bit about that format itself and how that might be helpful, and any tips you can give, please?
So yes, that's a very good question. So it's good because you will be given a layout, which is portraits, right? So you're that, what's the focal points that you'd like to talk about, and what you like to amplify in the image.
Hey, Sue, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
we're having some bandwidth problems. Do you want to turn your video off just briefly?
Yes.
And while you're doing that, I wanted to clarify that although everyone is submitting their artwork in a portrait format, they can have as many frames on there as possible. So there's a lot of freedom in how it's represented. So please continue.
Yes, absolutely. So which is great, because I want you to think about the composition. What kind of because you are given a portrait, which is the width and height are already fixed. So the compositions is really important. When you read the story, each story has a message, and there's a focal points that you want to amplify it. So whether you think you need 3 panels or 20 panels in order to complete the story, that's completely up to you. But you have to decide what you want audience to take a look when they look at it, such as myself, I guess, as a judge. You know, when I look at your image, I like to see what you want to actually really tell, rather than try to literally tell a story from beginning to the end. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, absolutely.
Okay.
So as our guests will see when they go to the contest website, it will tell them a little bit about what the judges will be looking for. And they do need to capture the basics of just the bare bones backbone of the story. What is the challenge? What was the NASA tool or asset? And what was the impact to the community? But what they stress beyond that and the style in which they do that is up to them. So there is a lot of room for artistic freedom. So your guidance is really helpful. Excellent, thank you. So let's see. Any questions, Miles, or should we do another round? All right. So let's see. I think we're going to focus a bit on collaboration with the next series of questions. So let's go back to Pawan then. Actually, Pawan, did I ask you a question yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so because these are both related, so I'm going to let you answer both of them to start off with. So let's have you talk for a minute first about why it's important for NASA to collaborate with other countries to address the issues related to the transboundary haze. So can you start with that, and then we'll expand on that?
Sure. So I think that is a really great question. And I just want to make a very generic statement here that pollution doesn't know any boundaries. It does not have a country boundaries, physical boundaries, or any geographical or political boundaries. If it is in the air and if the conditions are favorable, it will transport wherever it takes to. So that's one thing. And pollution often transports all over the globe. It's just not from one country, one state to another states, or one country to another. It's transport all around the globe, depending on type of pollution, where in the atmosphere it is, and what kind of pollution it is. So that is one thing you have to remember. So it means if there is a problem in Asia or over Europe, it doesn't mean it is not going to affect the US or other countries. So NASA as a agency which works on development of the entire planet, well-being of entire planet, and use the satellite data, which actually look or observes or make measurements all around the world, global, on every single days. There are many satellites. So the fundamental interest of NASA in this is that how we can use this space-based measurements to make people's life better all around the globe, whether it's in US or over India or over Asia or Thailand or anywhere. So that is fundamental reason why NASA is interested in transboundary pollution over Thailand. The second point on that is NASA and US International Agency of Development has a partnership through which called SURVEYOR program. And the fundamental objective of the SURVEYOR program is to help developing countries all around the world to use the satellite data to develop the applications and uses in their to make their own life or life making decisions or policies. So NASA has this partnership in SURVEYOR Mekong, which hosted in Thailand, and that's where the partnership started on this Thailand air quality story. So NASA's office here in US and Thailand, we work together, and then the Thailand agency, who is a partner, they works with the local agencies like Thai Pollution Control Department, the Thai Space Agencies, and many other agencies who might be interested in monitoring and forecasting air pollution. So it's kind of a chain of collaborative or institutions who works together to first assess what is required on the ground. Then they communicate to the NASA, and then NASA says, okay, we have solution for these, but we don't have these. So how we can develop that? And that is how the whole air quality explorer was developed, based on what is needed on the ground from the Thailand and back to the NASA.
So you very nicely began to answer the second question I was going to have for you, which was to talk not just about the global partnership, but how NASA was partnering in a local fashion. with authorities in Thailand. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or do you think you've covered that pretty well already?
Yeah, so I think as a partner of this whole program, let me give you an example of the activity which NASA was engaged. So I think that probably will clarify a little bit on type of engagement. So once we develop this science solution or application, what also we do is we go to the local, in this case, Thailand, and then the Thailand agency invite all the experts or people who are interested in learning about the new tool. And then we do a training. So that is called a training capacity building program. So we do and go and train people how to use, what are the limitations, what are the good thing about this data, and how you can make best of it. That is one thing. Second, we also engage with the young population, means the school, high school students, college students, even middle school students, through the competition. Just like this comic competition, we have a smokeathon competition held in Thailand, which basically ask people to develop either machine learning type of projects or some science projects surrounding the issue of air pollution and how we can best address as a collaboration in bringing different communities from the society.
And I remember from watching your longer video, which hopefully people will watch before they start working on their art, that there was actually a system that would allow people to make decisions about, what is okay to do today and what do I need to postpone for another day. So that was really, really excellent. Thanks, Pawan. Similarly, Sean, do you want to talk a little bit about how the collaborations between organizations, agencies, and authorities shaped your story? Yours is, I believe, more related to kind of the first responder and how they're going to work through these difficult challenges.
Sure. In the U.S., wildfire response is a big operation. It's almost like a military structure, and it involves all different agencies who have some stake in the land. And so, but often for wildfires, there's a big smoke situation. And so there's this thing called the Interagency Wildland Fire Air Quality Response Program. And within that program is something called the Air Resource Advisor. And the goal of the job of the Air Resource Advisor, who is trained to use all these different tools, is to understand and communicate the smoke situation. They communicate it to the incident command team, that is the wildfire, the firefighting folks, and as well communicate to public health agencies, local air quality agencies, and that sort of thing, to give them basically the story. Where is the smoke going? How bad is it? What's it going to be like tomorrow? How does that interact with the weather? And that information then can go to the public health agencies, where they can issue alerts out to the general public to say, to make decisions whether there should be shelter in place, whether they should be spare the air alerts or that sort of thing, whether they should send out messaging saying that, you should be avoiding canceling soccer practice and going on runs at different times of day or things like that. Just a range of different things, could even be to potential, like I said, shelter in place or evacuation. And so this partnership basically is in getting the information from satellites to the Air Resource Advisors, basically, so that they can understand, and trying to get information quicker than we have in the past on how much smoke is being produced and what does that mean. What does that mean for tomorrow's air quality, and so on.
That's perfect. So in addition to the valuable science and data that we're using here, it looks like partnership is also a really important theme for all of these stories. And Jonathan, maybe I'll give you a chance to talk a little bit about how do all the stakeholders interact with new aquaculture practices in Palau, and maybe a short example of how fishing works now and how it did before, please.
Sure. So as far as collaboration around aquaculture in Palau, there's already collaboration built into the previous development of aquaculture. And when TNC started this program, we helped strengthen those connections. There's a lot of collaboration right now between the national and state governments, as well as through educational institutions and the government as well. So right now there's government-run hatcheries that provide a lot of the seedlings and fingerlings for aquaculture. So it's funded through the national government, and they'll help distribute these seedlings and fingerlings to the aquaculture farmers. And then, that collaboration, we've worked with these partners and helped strengthen these collaborations. And sorry, the second question?
I think you're already folding it in, just kind of like a little bit of the detail about, what was happening before.
Oh, with the fisheries as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what a lot of Palauans saw was that the reef fish were becoming overharvested in many areas. There's quite a high demand for reef fish in local markets and also restaurants. And with this project, the hope is that we can further establish aquaculture and help create some food security through the use of aquaculture to reduce the pressure on the wild stocks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I see we actually have an online logistical question, which I can answer. And then, hey, Sue, I've got another question for you. And then that may actually be sort of the end of our time here for the webinar. So the question is, can a 12-year-old artist submit an entry to compete in the high school age category? And our the brief answer is going to be yes. So we never turn away someone younger than the typical age group, but you do have to realize that your artwork will be competing against the artwork from high school students, which in the United States is roughly about ages 14 to 18. So we welcome all those art entries. I think it's a fun thing to do over the summer, a lot to learn, and we know that young people can have amazing artwork. So the answer is yes, but you do have to realize that you've got stiff competition, so the art's going to have to be awesome. So moving ahead, hey Sue, I know this is the million-dollar question that everyone who wants to participate is thinking. And that question is, how do I make my comic artwork stand out?
I wish I knew the answer for that. Then I will make mine like that too. I'm just kidding. I know it's a never-ending question that you will always have, but again, don't worry about other people. I know it's a competition, I know it's a contest, but if you start thinking about what other people would do, it's not gonna help, right? No one is you, and that is your power, right? So I want you to remember that. So tell your story by these amazing scientists that you guys met today, and think about how you can express that visually. That is important.
That sounds like great advice, kind of a message for life, so to speak, not just for making artwork. So thank you very much, Jesus, and thank you actually also to all of our guests today. I really appreciate it. And just to let people know who are watching this now and perhaps later, you can continue to ask us questions, and we can email answers and list them in our FAQ. So just reach out online through the website and we will get your questions answered. And thanks again to all of our guests and to our viewers. We are excited to see your comic artwork telling the story of how NASA Earth's Science in Action benefits all of us back home on the planet. So thank you very much for attending.
Good luck, everyone.